A recent study by the University of Southern California, that's the one where Aunt Becky's kid goes to, their crosstown found that reports of shoplifting in the city of Los Angeles has more than doubled in the last decade, with the biggest jump in shoplifting crimes in Los Angeles was 32% between 2014 and 2015, right after the passage of Proposition 47. Last week, a report from Sacramento TV station KOVR said that those in the retail industry and law enforcement blame Prop 47, which more than doubled the amount a suspect could steal before facing a felony from $450 to $950. There's now growing support for a new ballot measure that would make Prop 47 known as the Keep California Safe initiative. It would make serial theft of more than $250 a felony,
which is a radical change. $950 and $250 are different universes.
Yes, and we know with Prop 57 that how you define terms matters a whole lot in the eyes of the law. When we passed Prop 57, we said, all right, we're going to have a heavy hand for those that commit serious crimes, and we're going to be lenient on those that commit lesser offenses. Mm-hmm. Well, then we redefined a bunch of crimes like elder abuse and arson and discharging a firearm on school grounds as nonviolent crimes, and therefore we just changed the way we sentence people for things that are violent but aren't considered to be violent.
Let me stop you for a moment. Would you say a gun on school grounds? Say that again?
Discharging a gun on school grounds.
That was considered under $950?
No. You're talking 47. I'm talking
about
57.
Okay.
What Prop 47 did was made it so that a lot of crimes associated with drug addicts were treated more as drug problems instead of as crimes.
And a lot of theft and nonviolent crimes were reduced from felonies to misdemeanors.
Right.
So a lot of people then could petition to get out of prison or jail because they no longer were felons.
But it also invited an organized crime element from the rest of the country to come out to California because everyone is well-versed on the law. They know the $950 limit. And you have people, when they do get caught by police, saying, just give me the ticket.
Just give me the ticket. It's more like an infraction at that point.
For stealing. And that's not $950 a day. That's $950 per incident.
And then you have proposals in the state of California that would grant essentially an amnesty to a whole host of crimes for people who are homeless that have tickets that haven't paid them. So even if you do give them tickets for certain offenses, if they don't pay it, they don't have the means to pay it, City Hall saying, well, we'll just waive the fee. So it's complete lawlessness in the city of Los Angeles and state of California. Joining us to talk about this is the president of the Association of Deputy District Attorneys, Michele Hanisee. Michele, good morning.
Hello, Michele.
Good morning, John and Steve.
Well, the inmates are officially running the asylum. What I don't understand is why anyone is surprised at these numbers.
I don't understand either. Why do we need studies to tell us that when you increase the amount people can steal and drastically reduce the penalties, that the criminal element would figure this out and take advantage of it?
No kidding. Now, when you prosecute these crimes, and members of your association prosecute these crimes, and they talk to shopkeepers, they talk to people that have small businesses, or maybe they even work for a bigger company, but they're a manager and they have to deal with this. How exhausted are they with the process? How much are they just throwing their hands up in the air saying, we don't know what to do?
You'll absolutely see that in the theft numbers, because every study that's been done, irrespective of whether it thinks Prop 47 caused the problem or not, agrees that property crimes went up drastically immediately after Proposition 47. But then they started tapering off. And I'm convinced the tapering off is because retailers and the people who were experiencing these shopliftings realized they started to learn you'd call the police, and the police couldn't do anything.
So why waste your time?
Why call the police?
Yeah. There is, I mentioned this earlier, people who are in support of Prop 47 basically say it's a good thing because the recidivism rate is way down compared to before Prop 47, basically meaning people are being released and not going back to jail or to prison, and there's been a slight uptick in crime. That's the way people who support it report it. What do you say?
The recidivism rate hasn't gone down. The entire purpose of Prop 47 was a failure, other than the fact that it was, again, another method to help empty out the prisons. But the state recidivism rate remains very high, both at the state level of people returning to state prison and at the probationary level under the supervision of county parole. The recidivism rate has not gone down at all.
And what have shops done? Have they just hired their own private security? And if so, is that private security supposed to try to apprehend shoplifters, or do they just keep track of what's gone?
No, I would absolutely discourage that, and the merchants should as well. We've had some very unfortunate incidents here in Los Angeles County where private security, and these aren't armed guards. This is some guy in a uniform standing at the door, attempts to stop someone running out with a 12-pack of beer, and one security guard in L.A. County got killed.
And also, I believe a lot of places are basically saying to the employees, ones who might try to stop the theft, don't do it. Don't endanger yourself. Let it go.
Well, that's right. What kind of liability would the shopkeepers stand if they're telling their employees to physically prevent someone from stealing something? They can't have that kind of liability, and they can't put their employees in that kind of danger.
Of course. Why risk your life because somebody's stolen something from your store? I mean, that makes sense.
Well, you don't. What happens is they suffer the loss, they raise prices and tax, and they pass the cost on to the rest of us.
Can you make any? Pardon me, John, but can you make any argument in favor of anything in Prop 47?
Okay, I can make one. The theft amount to qualify a theft as a felony hadn't changed in at least 2 decades. And just basic inflation, it should be inflation adjusted. I will give it that.
So if you were setting the number, what would it be?
Well, it used to be 400. I don't think, maybe less than a large screen TV costs. I don't know. You start to get to this area. Mm-hmm. But, you could easily put it up to $600. But that's still getting to be a lot. The real flaw of 47 is it made repeated thefts punishable by no more than a first time. So you could go steal something, as you said, walk into one store and steal $850, walk into another, walk into a third, all on the same day.
It's not cumulative. Yeah.
You know what? I'll tell you what I would do if I was organized crime. I would set up protection rackets in parts of town where this is rampant, which is many parts of town, and I would charge these shopkeepers money, and I would go in there and I would make sure that these shoplifters had the living crap kicked out of them if they went in there and did that.
In the nation of John, this is what happens.
This is what happened in New York back in the old days when the Irish mob and the Italians were running that city.
Well, but we've talked about that was double-edged. One is they stopped people from stealing from you, but then they stole from you.
Right. But then well, that's why it's a protection racket. That's why it's illegal. Have we seen any inklings of that going on in the city so far?
No, not that I'm aware of. But LA's not New York. LA's not San Francisco. We are a vast and sprawling geography, very different from the very compact cities of New York and San Francisco.
But we do have street gangs, and there are parts of towns where if the street gangs decided to set up protection rackets, they could theoretically make a killing.
That's probably too much work for them. They'd prefer to just shake down the guy selling fruit from a cart on the street.
Well, are you optimistic that any of this is going to change? Because, look, we used to be a very tough on crime state. We're the state that passed 3 strikes and you're out. We have enhancements, gun enhancements. We passed that in the state of California for people who committed crimes with guns. We tossed Rose Byrd out when she was playing games with the death penalty. But things have started to change here, and it worries me that if Prop 47 were up for another vote, that these fools wouldn't vote it in again.
Well, first, the voters were lied to when they passed Prop 47. It was given a lot of spin, and a lot of falsehoods were out there about what it was going to do. And you had people like the governor saying, you're wrong, it's not going to let sex offender, do this, do that. And now we're seeing the consequences, and the voters will fix it when they're fed up with what's going on.
But Michelle,
we're hoping they do that in 2020.
As I recall, it was a landslide. It was like 60% to 40%.
Well, because it was titled so crookedly. Who's going to vote against the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act?
Well, 57, too.
I don't think that's what 47 was called. I think there was something beyond that was called that. It was the reducing, Michelle, help me out.
It was all
this.
About drug addicts.
Yeah.
Both 47 and 57 had the word safe in the title. One was safe neighborhoods and streets, and one had schools in it, but they both used the word safe.
All right. Michele Hanisee, the president of the Association of Deputy District Attorneys. You can get her online at laadda.com.
Michele, I want to give you a piece of advice. I want you to feel free to speak your mind from now on, okay?
Well, if I could give you and your listeners a piece of advice, vote for the Keep California Safe initiative on the 2020 ballot that's going to fix some of these problems. And sadly, the governor's office and the attorney general who named these things, or it's Sacramento, its official title is restricts parole for nonviolent offenders, authorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated only as misdemeanors initiative. So that's the wonderful title they give it. But we're calling it Keep California Safe, and you can look up information at keepcalsafe.org.
We've got to find a way, and since your organization represents nothing but attorneys, maybe you guys can figure it out. We've got to find a way to take the power away from the Attorney General of California to write the title and summary of the initiatives and the referendums that we vote on, the constitutional amendments, because they rig the process there. That's the point of failure.
Is there a possible nonpartisan person or group to write these things?
There should
Your
be.
guess is as good as mine. There should be.
Yeah, but we're so polarized now.
Here's something that they figure out with the courts.
What?
If you're running for office, and let's say you're a retired judge, but you're now a trial attorney, you can't call yourself a judge on the ballot. The courts will toss that out because it's patently unfair, because you're no longer a judge, you're now a trial attorney. If you're a retired police officer that now sells insurance, you have to be an insurance salesman. We should be able to figure out how to allow the courts to do it in a fair way that doesn't involve a partisan elected official that's looking to put their hand on the scale.
Let me clarify here. I believe Prop 47 actually on the ballot was called a Reduced Penalties for Some Crimes initiative. That also brought about something called the Safe Neighborhood and Whatever Act as part of it. But that wasn't the name of Prop 47. I think I'm correct on that. And I might be wrong.
You know, they have the proponent's title, and then they have the official title, and they're going to be two different things.
Right.
What you see in the media, what you see on the ads on TV promoting it, are going to be the proponent's title. And I do think it had to do with schools and safe and blah, blah, blah. The ballot initiative is always going to be much more technical and dry.
Yeah, Reduced Penalties for Some Crime initiative. Hey,
all right. Michele Hanisee, thank you so much.
My pleasure.